In the past decade, global fast food chains have been expanding across Africa. In Nigeria alone, an estimated $10 billion worth of food is being imported into the country every year. But one Nigerian woman has decided to flip the script. Her name is Ada Osakwe, a former investment banker, African Development Bank executive, and government advisor to Nigeria's Ministry of Agriculture.
Without me knowing it, I just became that person saying, why is KFC here? And by the way, they're not buying potatoes from our farmers. They're actually importing because they say that their master franchise, wherever, says they have to use the exact same potatoes they use in South Africa or wherever else. And I'm like, what? So you mean you want us to buy your products and these are not even grown here? It makes no sense to me. When I was looking at those things, I guess it all formed that growing instability in me, that passion to do something different.
Ada walked away from a lucrative public policy career to build Nuli Foods, a Nigeria-based fast casual food brand rooted in local sourcing, African flavors, and healthier lifestyles. And recently, Ada made arguably one of the biggest moves yet, expanding Nuli into the US market, a bold step at reversing the global flow of food brands. Her goal, 1,000 stores in America. So, what does it take to build an African food chain that scales worldwide while competing with the likes of Chipotle and Kava? Find out in this episode of Black and Borderless. So thank you again, Ada, so much for joining us on Black and Borderless. We are honored. I have to say, I've been following you and the work that you're doing for Nuli. I'm saying Nuli correctly, is right?
You are.
I'm saying that. So I've been following what you've been doing on Nuli for quite a long time. And then coincidentally, one of my friends on LinkedIn tagged me on one of your posts and said, you should, have her on Black and Borderless. I said, well, yes, I've been trying to figure out how to get her on. So I think it definitely had to happen. I think those are all signs that we definitely had to meet and we had to have this call. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me, Kate. I know it took a while for us to schedule this, but what a way to start the new year, right? Just sharing and truly, just getting pumped up with sharing our dreams and our goals and our stories, really, to inspire. Yeah,
absolutely.
To remember and to inspire.
Yeah. No, totally. And, I just I want to chat about all things Nuli, but I think what I've noticed about the brand or what I've picked up is that it's bigger than just a casual restaurant, right? There's this whole supply chain story there. There's a whole story about being bold enough to extend an Africa-based chain to the US. And that's really the crux, I think, of your story. And I think that's what really pulled me and drew me towards it. It's a pretty radical idea, right? At a time when we have big, US fast food chains like Pizza Hut and, KFC, invading Africa and extending into Africa, we have this, Africa-based chain like Nuli doing the opposite. And I think that's a pretty radical idea in 2026. And that's what I want to spend a lot of time during this discussion talking about, is that what gave you the gall?
The liver, as we say. Yeah, that liver.
So if this were a TED Talk, that would be like the head of the TED Talk. What gave an African woman the sheer audacity to do the reverse of what these big multinational chains have been doing in many developing countries, which is extending. But you're saying, no, we're going to bring our thing to you now. So we're going to get into that in a minute. But for, our listeners who are not familiar with what Nuli is, tell us what Nuli is and what it's not.
Oh, wow. No, it is. I'm so excited for this conversation. Let me just say that right now, Kate, and I can't wait to delve in. But yes, absolutely. Starting from, what Nuli is. Nuli is something really special. Nuli is a part of me now in a really big way. And I think that realization just happened maybe last year when I did the US launch and brought the brand from Africa into the US continent. It really is a part of me. It was birthed of me, of my desire to bring something bold, something fresh, something healthy, something African, something original to life. And that's exactly what we've done and we continue to do. It's a brand that really has at the heart of its mission a goal to transform lifestyles, influence healthier eating patterns, but using locally grown produce that's fresh, that's mostly grown on African soils by farmers, um, and that's sort of how we want to make a difference and we want to make impact. So the brand is a food brand. Started off as a beverage company doing cold pressed juices at a time when people didn't even know in Nigeria what it was to drink a beverage that has spinach and carrots, and they're like, why is there this separation? What is that? What are those particles? And we're like, well, it's all natural. It has no water. Nothing is even added. And it's just, and they're like, what the heck? So we're a first mover in many ways. And we'll come to that obviously when we talk about the US launch. But when I look back, there's been that pattern of being a first mover in a bold way, and to be able to start changing mindsets, lifestyles, perceptions about what it meant to eat local with a no import policy at my company. At the time we were starting, it was like, no, I'm not going to bring kale. I'm not going to use kale. At the time when kale was like the fad, it's like, do we grow that? Take it out. It's not in Nigeria, then I'm not growing it. It's not going in our juices. So we started as a juice company and then evolved very quickly a year later into a fast casual restaurant brand. I should say the phrase fast casual is not something that Nigerians know, but it was just something that I felt was necessary for the type of business we were growing, and I can speak to that in a bit if you want to sort of delve deeper into that. But we really truly launched something, I believe, that has started. It's a movement in a way, and to change lives and change the patterns and truly drive better for you local consumption in a big way.
Yeah, yeah. And that, again, like as I mentioned earlier, that it was a really interesting time to do that in Nigeria at a time when, like I said, big US chains that are not necessarily always healthy, if we're going to be honest, like
Mm-hmm.
and KFC were courting the Nigerian market or courting Nigerian consumers, right? So
Yeah.
when I come in at that time and you say, no, I'm going to give you, not only is it not a US fast casual or fast food chain, it's one that's, healthier and it's locally sourced and we're not going to
Yes.
import anything. So
Yes.
absolutely,
So,
that is radical.
I love the word radical. Didn't
Yeah.
think that way then because I believe that had worked with the African Development Bank, lived in Tunisia for 4 years, North Africa. So I really had this, I was a Pan-Africanist at heart. And working with the African Development Bank so early on in my life, I had finished an investment banking, finished my master's in the UK, worked in investment banking, and then moved over to Tunisia to join. So really early as a 25-year-old or so, 26-year-old, I was working on transactions that were driving Africa forward, right? Be it a toll road or an infrastructure project that was going to change how we got power. And then working in government for 4 years in Nigeria, right at the front and center of public policy in food systems was where I truly got that passion to make a difference. At the time, we were importing over $10 billion worth of food, mainly our staple products like wheat, like fish, like rice that Nigerians eat. The demand of over 10 million metric tons annually, the largest demand and consumption in Africa is right here in Nigeria for rice. And we were importing this and we continue to import it, but things have started changing. So for me, it was like, this doesn't make sense. We have all this land, it's arable, we have water, we have human beings, we have young people. We really need to look inwards and we need to just change the narrative around what it means to be food secure
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and not depend on others. And I saw, I guess, all of those things combined, being that Pan-Africanist, the African Development Bank experience, and seeing just the beauty of the continent and what our potential was, and then working in government in Nigeria on the ground, I think really formed that, I wouldn't say radicalism, but maybe without me knowing it, I just became that person saying, why is KFC here? And by the way, they're not buying potatoes from our farmers. They're actually importing, because they say that their master franchise, wherever, of Yum Brands says they have to use the exact same potatoes they use in South Africa or wherever else. And I'm like, what? So you mean you want us to buy your products and these are not even grown here?
Yes.
Makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at those things, I guess it all formed that, it was that growing instability in me, that passion to do something different, and to address this issue of looking inwards. And so when it was a no-brainer for me, I would make those comments. It's interesting you hit on it, but I would say to people that no more KFC or Pizza Hut. This was 2016 when we started. We're 10 years old this year. And that 5 year, just maybe 5 years before that, there was that trend of these brands coming in. And I was like, why are we paying such huge franchise fees to go get these brands when, what I would say then, I would say in their countries that they are trying to go away from fast food. They are talking about better for you food. So why is it Africa that's now the dumping ground, that you've now seen, a billion people that you want to bring your food, your bad food to? No, we say no. And so it was not only about advocating for this. For me, it was like, how do I do something about it? And Nuli was my answer, or Nuli is and continues to be my answer, to build a bold food brand, restaurant brand in this case, that is allowing us to use only locally grown produce wherever we are, right? To truly boost those economies and boost livelihoods. And I use the word brand. I'll just say this finally on this point. I use the word brand intentionally, because you could say that, people were blown away by, oh my gosh, KFC, oh my gosh, Burger King, and the years, decades of global empires, American brands that had gone global, and decades of building, of understanding consumer insights, of branding, marketing, just really truly understanding how to reach the consumer in the look, the feel, the voice, everything the brands did. So putting my Kellogg Northwestern MBA to use, these were things that even when I was building, I was just like, I need to build to the standards to these global standards of these brands. We're not going to accept mediocrity. In fact, it's in our staff handbook, our culture guide. It was like no to mediocrity, which we were used to. Because you say, why do people go to these other brands? Maybe the Nigerian brands hadn't met up to those standards. And I was like, I was going to build something that met up to those standards from a brand perspective. And I'm proud to say that we've done that in spite of the challenges, and I'm sure we'll speak to that, operating such a brand, a fast casual, fresh produce brand in a country that has limited power, electricity to run those refrigerators or whatever, or you can't really find sometimes the quality of printing you want for your paper bags or your branding and your graphics. But we made it happen. We've shown it's possible. And not only Nigeria now, Kate, but globally, expanding into Washington, D.C. And I'm so proud of that.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that expansion in a second. But I want to understand, when you entered the market, the Nigerian market in 2016, Abuja was your first location was in Abuja, right? How many locations do you have now in Nigeria?
We have about 6 locations now.
Okay. And I'm assuming one of them is in Lagos. At least one of them is in Lagos, right?
All of them now are in Lagos. So we closed Abuja after a year. To be honest, by the time we opened Lagos and I saw the numbers, the sales in 1 month was pretty much, the sales in 2 weeks was what Abuja that had been there for a year was doing in a month. So I was like, oh, I found my market,
Yeah.
to over
Yeah.
20 million people, folks who understood and were looking for these options. And so I set out focus efforts. We continue to have requests to come back even till now,
Really?
and we'll do so at some point
Mhm.
when things settle in general. But now the focus is elsewhere. So everything is in Lagos. We at the height of it, we were 10 stores,
Mhm.
and after COVID, we, restaurant industry is still recovering. For those who survived COVID,
Mhm.
I think the impacts continue to be there, and it's only now that we are excited to be rebuilding and thinking about local expansion again. But we're
Mhm.
at 6 stores, six locations, I say, and now the seventh in the US.
Yeah. 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 So within this market, right? Let's say mainly Lagos is kind of like your main market right now. What
Hmm.
do you think is pulling um, customers the most, or more, I should say? Is it the fact that your products are locally sourced? Is it the fact that they are healthy? What is kind of the hook that you're using to pull the consumers? And was
Yeah,
that from consumer research, or you just kind of went in and
yeah,
error?
absolutely. Great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. So thank you. I think for Lagos, and this is such an important question because I just went through the process. So I'm still going through the process with the US store, as I think about what the positioning of the brand is and what's that hook. But I led with we are giving you healthier options, right? But by the way, in order to do that, we are sourcing locally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because of that, implicitly, it means I'm not exposed to shocks of exchange rates. So when there was a crisis, Newly could keep its prices okay. When there was that exchange rate crisis, we could keep prices balanced. Um, and we were the fact that we were sourcing locally. For me, it was helping a business model with regards to pricing.
Mm-hmm.
I could give you an all natural product, and contrary to your perceptions
Mm-hmm.
that these things are typically expensive because it's not processed, it's not your typical sodas or
Mm-hmm.
your beverage, it's not the typical, but because I was doing it locally, I could translate that into lower prices. So affordability was a big thing for us. So I would say that the hook maybe in order of priority of what we've seen over the years, and when we do consumer surveys or customer surveys, it's everything from affordability. Um, or I would start with looking for better options, and just trying us and realizing, oh my gosh, healthy food can be tasty. So that was a big thing for us, that you could go healthy, and it removed that viewpoint or that worldview, or the truth that people felt that eating healthy had to be this sad, salads that weren't tasty or food that was drab.
Yeah.
And we were providing options that were creative and easy to consume, and really really tasty. So I
Yeah.
think that's maybe the first thing, and you'd see that in any top entrepreneur in that deals with consumers, and particularly food or the restaurant industry. They'll tell you that, right? It's what you get. You hook them first with maybe a great brand and your marketing or whatever, and they come. But if you don't keep customers with taste,
Yeah.
and then pricing to an extent, you've lost your way. So that was a big one for us, having a stellar product that was healthy. And then the second was a level of affordability. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, some of the places we're in, especially maybe in the higher brow areas in the urban cities, you would get people tell us outright that we were cheap. And
Wow.
so, relative, especially to what they felt our product was, the quality we were
Mm-hmm.
providing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're giving us such great quality, great portions. How are you able to sell it at these prices?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it was a very intentional strategy. We had solid gross margins, over 60%. I think what would eat at the bottom line were things like the high operating costs in Nigeria, and then you pretty much have to manage that from an expense standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But
I was so dogged about that, maintaining affordability, so that
Mhm.
people would eat Nuli. In our survey, we'll ask how many times a week do you eat Nuli, and the highest percentage would be 3, and that for me was a huge win. That's 3 out of your 5-day work week.
Wow, wow.
We
So it's a
really focused.
daily meal
That
for people.
was a
Yeah.
win. It was like, if I can get you 3 times of your 5-day work week, I have won,
Mhm.
right? Because it's a lifestyle. How
Yeah.
do we make it a lifestyle? How do
Yeah.
I make you switch your Fanta to a carrot juice from Nuli? Even
Mhm.
if you want to eat the oily,
Mhm.
highly processed, whatever fast foods, if instead of a milkshake that was, filled with processed sugars, you took a Nuli juice, that's a change
Yeah.
that I'm glad, and I'm glad about. So being able to put Nuli in your everyday life, and making it convenient enough and affordable enough for folks, I think, has been a big thing, a big reason for our staying power.
Mhm.
And I'll say finally on this point, I don't want to tear up, but it's been a tough journey with regards to operating in such a difficult market sometimes, right? But I think, and I don't know, I'm a believer in Christ. I know that God is maybe speaking, and He knows when, especially for many entrepreneurs, and your lowest points, He
Mhm.
sends these signs. And I have been getting, in the last year, it's just constant, right? I meet random folks, oh, you're Nuli, or they find ways to get to me and say, I've always wanted to tell you this. I'm a Nuli lover. I eat Nuli almost every other day. My husband and I, somebody said that the other day. Some kids came up to me, Auntie, you're Nuli. I love your chicken shawarma. Oh, Auntie, mommy takes me there. And, so the fact, and then people would tell me about how their parents who had high blood pressure drink only a certain, our juices, and it helped them regulate that, or people who are diabetic, or the fact that we provide cassava gluten-free options. No one's doing this in such an intentional way, and we have been doing this for years, 10 years now, in 2026. And this really, it really makes me feel
Yeah. Yeah.
so good, and feel like it was all worth it, right? And there's still so
Yeah.
much more to do. So
Yeah.
in spite of the challenges, it's been worth it, because we truly are hitting the boxes for a need,
Mhm.
and we're fulfilling that consumer need,
Mhm.
in a way that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I've observed that myself. I mean, as someone who's not even had a chance to even, experience the product, just what I'm seeing online and the response that people are having, you're changing the, lifestyles of people. You're making people, getting people to lead healthier lifestyles. And that's a really big shift in, I think, a market where we've been taught that, processed, imported, not very healthy things are a status symbol,
Yeah,
essentially. Fanta is
yeah,
a status symbol. Like I remember growing up in Cameroon, if you got to drink Fanta every day in your household, or a thing of juice, you were considered richer.
yeah,
Whereas it's a source of diabetes. But we've been kind of programmed to think
yeah,
that. So we have to kind of reverse this and go back to the fact that no, unprocessed, healthier options, which is where we started as, I think, as a continent, are better options,
exactly.
and we kind of revisit that. And you're doing that. So in a sense, you're almost a traditionalist. Maybe you didn't intend to be that, but you are in the sense, because that's how in rural areas in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, people were eating
Yeah,
unprocessed food. It was
yeah,
a farm to table diet, and we at some point, because of the influence from the West, we kind of strayed away from that. So
yeah.
that's really remarkable that you're having that impact. So let's talk about the menu. It's truly Pan African, and I'm saying this. I'm saying this to you as a Nigerian. I think sometimes when people start things in Nigeria, that people tend to expect that it'll be, when they call it African, it's going to be really Nigerian because a Nigerian started it. But what I found kind of interesting about your menu is that it is truly Pan African, and even
Mm.
beyond Africa, it has some, I think, like some Mediterranean influences. If I'm,
My 4 years in Tunisia and North
yeah,
Africa, the
yes,
Mediterranean.
North
Yeah,
Africa, yes.
yeah,
So it's truly an eclectic menu. So I want you to just to share like your three favorite items on the menu, and what the cultural influences are of those items on the menu.
Oh my gosh. So my three favorite, I'll take current favorites, right? And then what else?
Just your three favorite, and then what like are the like what are the influence like the
Oh,
ingredients and the what's
oh
like
my
what
gosh. So it evolves. That's some
is
standard, but the current fave, I would say, is a new juice, a limited series a limited edition juice we brought out for Christmas here in Lagos. It's called Good Tidings, and it's a cold pressed juice that's got watermelon, beetroot, a little bit of pineapple, and some ginger, and it's just so refreshing. It's ridiculously good. And so that's my current fave. But my go-to is typically the zobo, the hibiscus and pineapple, and I'll speak to why. Even my little girl, 3 years old, that's all she's drank, I think, since she was born, since she started solids. And that's what she has for dinner, with her dinner. So that's my first. The second would be the naan melt. We call it in the US the naan saute wraps. And I do the prawn, and it's just delicious. It's melt in mouth. As you know, our wraps, we're very unique. We make our own naan bread, the Indian naan bread, and I'll speak to that in a second. And then maybe the third would be our now it's the jollof in the DC store, because
Really?
we're only about to the jollof bowl of our African magic bowls. It's so good.
What's in it? What's in a jollof bowl? What are kind of all the?
So our African magic bowls are already curated little bowls of whichever main grain you want, and our grains and our four choices. So you've got the jollof rice, which is West African. You've got Nigerian, we say fried rice, but Niger style. So it's not Chinese fried rice. It's the way we make it here. In fact, I made some last night. It was so delicious. And then the third is our jollof couscous. So the Mediterranean influence in Africa, which is mostly North Africa. I lived in Tunisia for many years. They eat couscous. I ate couscous a lot. And then I brought it into the Nuli menu, but making it with the jollof vibe. So that was quite unique. And then finally a jollof style fonio. And fonio is that miracle grain. It's millet. We source it from the Jos Plateau in Nigeria. And it's just, low in the glycemic index. It has the 9 amino acids. It is obviously gluten-free, and it's just amazing. It's just such a power superfood.
Yeah.
And so we have those 4 options as our bowls, our Africa Magic bowls. So you could pretty much say, I would like a jollof bowl when you order, or you could say, I want a fried rice bowl. And once I was standing behind the counter in DC, and a customer was sort of thinking through what he wanted. And we let folks taste it and little taste stuff if they want to try and see what it's like. And he was like, I really want that, but I also want to try that. So I now go, would you like half and half? I kind of thought of the half and half thing of milk. So I was like, half and half. And next thing, and he was like, oh my gosh, yes, thank you. And then I created that on the menu so folks could have half a jollof and half a fried. But these bowls, again, have just really balanced from, you say eat the rainbow, right? It's got your greens in it, chopped lettuce and sweet corn and grated carrots on one side. It's got a little naan, saute, red bell pepper saute sauce, just a dollop of that in the corner. And it's got plantains, fried plantains. So little cubes of fried plantains in the corner as well. And then you've got your bowl. Even if you're eating a large wrap, for example, or a large bowl, I made it in such a way that you could have a small salad on the side. How do I make eating nice and convenient and delicious, so you don't feel you had too much? And a big thing for me when I think about diets and healthier eating and better for you diets, it's about portion control. You've heard that before. So being able to give options that people say, I feel like I'm fed, I feel that was healthy, but I'm not full. And you think about it in Nigeria, and I'm sure in Cameroon as well, you have those meals that, like, if you have it at lunchtime, you just want to sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's so knocks
Fufu and
you out.
egusi meal, big.
The food was really just a fuel, right?
Yeah.
It was just going to fuel you to keep going. In fact, someone just tried us for the first time today, my neighbor, and he just got delivery, and he just sent very tasty and fresh with a heart, right? And I know he's going to say a lot more after this, but that's what we get: tasty, fresh, and that's really exciting. Finally, on the menu, and the three things I said, and just in general, like I love everything, but those are many of my go-tos. I like a salad on the side. Some days I want the jollof couscous. But I did everything on the menu. I created the menu. I cooked everything. And I'll tell you the origin of the first item on the menu after the juices. I still have the paper where I wrote my first combination of juices. It's pinned up on my fridge.
Wow.
It's pinned up on my fridge. It's so ragged now, and the color has changed, but it just reminds me of how far we've come. But the nanini wrap was our first, when I was conceptualizing, okay, if I want to do more than juices and have this healthy food cafe, what do I want? I really want wraps. I really want bowls. I had lived in New York after business school, after Chicago, and I'd walk past to get to my office on Fifth Avenue. I'd walk past a Hale and Hearty soup. I would walk past, some of these sort of healthier brands or better for you brands that it was just soup, it was a wrap, so that concept was sort of the life I had started living and appreciating. So I felt that there was nothing like that in Nigeria, and that's what I was going to do. Yeah. So I was sitting, I was hungry. I was in Abuja in my home, and I had this in the fridge. I had leftovers, and I was hungry, and I was like, the leftovers were Indian takeaway. So I had the merg tikka, that's the boneless chicken tikka type piece. And then I had naan. This restaurant in Abuja that I love. They make such amazing naan bread. And then I had a salad that I had made. And so I was like, it'll be interesting to let me put the salad in the naan. So I put the naan out, and I believe mayo and just putting cream, just a sauce inside. So I kind of put some mayo spread it on the naan bread. And then I put the salad, which was lettuce, sweet corn, and carrots, grated carrots. I always do a sort of simple salad. And then I placed the merg tikka, the Indian grilled tandoor grilled chicken in it. And I rolled it up like a panini. I believe everything tastes better. Bread always tastes better lightly toasted. So I put it on a press, did a light toast, and I took a bite of that thing, and I was in heaven. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. So I always sort of like parked it. And so when I started the brand, it was the first thing that I put on the menu and tried out. And we made the mayo, a peppered mayo. So it's sprinkled with our red pepper from Africa. And pretty much did this, and people were trying it and say, can I have that wrap? Can I have that wrap? And it was doing so well. So that was part of our menu and the first item on our menu. And then I did the whole couscous because it was what I had eaten in Tunisia and made it jollof style. So that was very interesting. And it was called the naan panini. So it was naan bread, but with the panini press, right? And when we opened our first store in Lagos, after about a week, and people were talking about us online, and it was sort of going mini viral, and folks were saying the new spot. And someone said, I had the naan panini, it was really good. I think there was a review somewhere. And there was a comment from a random person and said, naan panini, oh, why not nanini? And we were like, thank you, we love that. And that's how we crowdsourced the name Nanini. And it became a bestseller on our menu. So that's the origin. And I'll just say, finally, I'm sure people are thinking, you're talking Africa, and why are they talking about Indian food? But like the Indian, group, they're the second in terms of ethnic migrants into Africa. They're the largest ethnic migrants into Africa, the second largest ethnic group after Black Africans on the continent are Indians, mostly in East Africa. So you would find that East African cuisine has chapatis and has naan, and then as well, but it's not part of our natural cuisine. You see it in an Indian restaurant where there are many, but you think of East African chapatis and naan, it's just in a black Kenyan's home. That's what they
Yes.
make. And so our naan wraps are an ode to that, and that's reflective of East African culture, but the Indians that are Africans generations over. And that's always an interesting point sort of to make. And it
Yeah.
just tastes amazing instead of
Yeah.
using Lebanese bread or
Yeah.
stuff that people yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Lots of people don't know that there's an Indian influence in, especially East African cuisine and Kenyan and, Tanzanian cuisine. So it's good that you pointed that out. No, that's great. How that's really funny and cool how that, kind of the idea was born and then it became this kind of, mainstay on your menu. So let's talk about so you have this idea for Nuli. You mentioned in the LinkedIn post that you had some naysayers, like anybody who wants to start something new, right? That has not been done before, and a few people have done before. So tell me who, you don't have to tell me the person's name, but about the person who was the biggest naysayer when you wanted to start Nuli, and what was their rationale for you not starting it?
Oh my gosh. Interesting question. Never had that. And I don't think I've thought about it so much, but I can't really think of a person, but I can think of maybe a group or a category of people. The kind of category of folks who had seen me as a senior advisor to the Federal Minister of Agriculture and Food in Nigeria, Africa's largest economy. I had been on those levels, right? Policy making, interacting with global players, the highest of local players, businessmen, policymakers, government officials. And so to leave that and they say, what's Ada doing now? And literally it was comments like, she's doing juice. and it was interesting. Yeah, and that was mostly those categories, right? For businessmen, women, and it's not easy, right? And that's why I always let folks know that don't ever forget, it's not about you when you're in these high flying jobs. Remember, it's the position, it's the title. So when it becomes about you, is you have to be so intentional about being who you are, being good to people, remembering it's that you should just be a good human being and build those relationships naturally. And don't depend on a position, because as you know, if you leave government or you leave a big position, this stops ringing.
Yeah, because you're not the plug anymore, as we say.
People go mad.
Yeah.
Some people get depression, some people go mad who were in these positions, and it was so powerful. And it was quite similar. So I could have gotten depression, I could have gone mad. But I didn't, because I had conviction in what I was doing. I was unafraid to start from scratch. It was daunting, but I just really had a belief in what I was doing, and I had enough people who believed me, enough people who believed in me, and who were ready to support my dream. And obviously, after I had really conceptualized it in the beginning, I supported my dream in the way, Kate, I believe you're supporting your dream of doing Black and Borderless. But I had to get started on my own, and when you have that, you've made the proof of concept, and there's that validation, folks will follow. So I had to stay really dogged and in that belief in myself, and get past all of the naysayers, and they're the ones who are Nuli customers now. Some of them seek.
You're doing juice, and they're buying the juice that you're doing.
So,
and what I'm getting from you is that, you almost moved to tears talking about the impact of this juice that will start off as juice that you're selling. Did you ever have that feeling? Maybe you did in your previous career. You had these, high top positions. Nope. Did you ever have that? Okay, so I was trying to be politically correct.
No, not at all, and it's a great question. I'd never overly thought about that, but I've never compared the two. But no, with that, no way. In fact, now over the last few years, we would ask, I could have closed Nuli. We went from profitability to nothing, right? it's been a tough slug. And then now back to profitability, and now you're building, and so it's good. But there was a time that I lost the fire, especially after COVID, when you're sort of rebuilding again and trying I had to find that fire again. And the blessing of the US store, I think, has helped me find that fire again. Starting that from scratch, it reminded me of why I started this. It allowed me to bring my creativity. As I mentioned, I everything on the menu I created. I had to teach people again. I got connected with my teams again. Because over the years, you start becoming, as you're building the structures, all of that. So I don't have to go to work. I don't have to go to the office. I have teams of folks who are keeping the wheels moving.
Yeah.
So you start losing that connection, and every store we opened, I was the one who would draw on our chalkboards and write the Nuli story, draw the logo. So it was always a way to stay with my creative side. I would sit at stores. I have met so many people. I think I met my ex-boyfriend in a Nuli store. I have invested in startups and people by meeting them at Nuli. I have made such wonderful connections through this brand. And it nearly went away. That fire and that zeal nearly went away because of the stress of entrepreneurship and doing it in such a difficult environment. But it was just so, I feel so alive again, and so thankful that as we turn 10 years old, it's all back. And I'm really excited, and because in many ways of those Nuli lovers who tell their stories, who keep coming back, who tell those stories of impact and what Nuli means to them, it's everything.
Yeah. So that's great. And now, so you have this great thing happening in Lagos. You have this really impactful business. What makes you decide to take it to the US? Because you seem like you're doing pretty well in Lagos. The revenue was great, all of that. What makes you think this is the time to take it to the US? And when you decide to take it to the US, why do you choose DC?
Yeah. No, Kate, you remember when you asked me about, this, that radical view and the audacity to even say we were going to start a brand at a time when the global brands, food brands, were opening up, the restaurants were opening up in Lagos. Part of that narrative for me, and part of that passion and that zeal to do things differently, all for local content and all, was the fact that I said, we should have our brands going abroad. Why are we waiting for them to come here? We should be building brands that are so good that can open up in the US, in London, in Dubai, wherever. And so it was formed really early on, from day one, even before Nuli has become what it was. It was always a goal that
was
one
always the
day
plan.
we would take this brand global. I raised funding in 2018 just from a small group of friends and family, and it was part of the narrative. I put this last slide that had us in the middle, and it had brands, local, global brands, and it's funny, many of them don't exist anymore. The food is not easy. They don't exist anymore.
Not for the week.
and so I was like, we would be there. We will be amongst these brands globally. And so it has been a big passion of mine. Why DC? We did some good research, market scoping studies, full-blown strategy. I had lived in DC or been in DC for a while. I have family there, so I would visit. I loved the how metropolitan the entire space was. Or cosmopolitan, I would say, having a market that was broader than just DC, and having the M and the V, Maryland and Virginia, having a really solid African Black base and African diasporan base as well. in these three states, but at the same time, so being international enough, I just felt, and then still having, just a great base of local, what it meant to be American, being at the center of it all. I think for me, these things all came together. So it was in my mind. So by the time we did the market scoping and DC came up tops alongside other East Coast spaces like New York, like Philly, for me, I just gravitated towards DC. I was like, I love this. It's I don't want to get lost in New York. I don't want to have to deal with high rents or restaurants open and close just like that. Let me use DC, a place where the restaurant scene has been growing over the last decade, where people are curious, from a diversity standpoint, and they want to try various cuisines from across the country, the world. I felt it would be an interesting launch pad for us in the US. And so that's really why we ended up with DC. We were supported by the US government, and we joined a trip in the US Embassy from Nigeria to DC, where it was called Select USA, and they come from embassies, bring business folks from all their different countries around the world, and they get to meet the investment promotion teams of the different states, the 54 states, I think, and the territories. And you get to pretty much understand what they give, what benefits they have, and they pretty much sell their states for you to come invest. And I thought that was interesting, right? Typically, especially from Nigeria or countries in Africa, you're waiting for foreign direct investment, waiting for Americans to come to you and bring money. And it was just really nice going around and figuring out, why should I come to LA? Tell me what you're going to do for me, right? Or why should I come to DC? And I just really had a good rapport with the folks from DC. So it was just ticking the box in many ways. I felt DC was important for my understanding and my experience. The market scoping research showed it was tops. Millennials were there. The young generation were driving sales with regards to fast casual trends and everything else I mentioned. And then having this good rapport with the investment promotion. They followed up when I left. They followed up. They were very helpful. And so it just sort of made the entry easier. And then they made the necessary intro to our partners, of the folks our landlords, our partners, the food hall that we ended up in, which is called The Square, which was one of the newer food halls. It was a dream place for me. They never responded to emails. It's really tough because they get so many people reaching out to them to have their restaurants in their building, and being able to get in there was a big blessing for us. But I would say that intro came from the Washington DC promotions team. But I always tell people that success is, we've heard that Seneca, the philosopher, success is when preparation meets opportunity. And we were prepared, right? When they had the meeting, they loved our branding. They loved the pictures of the food. They've never been to Nuli in Nigeria. They'd never tasted it. They were taking a big bet on an African brand. We can speak to it in a bit, and I'd love to share, Kate, just changing perceptions on what it means to be African and African food. And so seeing that they took a bet, and we were ready. The next day, shared it with their teams, came back, okay, we want to learn more. What equipment needs do you have? What would it take? And I had everything. Oh, here, that's this document. Here's this document. Here. So we were ready. We were professional. And so that facilitated it. So I don't want people listening to this thinking that, oh, if Ada did it, it's going to be easy peasy. I just need to. We did our research. We made sure I didn't scoff at going on the trade mission with the US folks. I paid my way out there. I wanted to learn. I came into this market, into the US market, with a lot of humility. I didn't say to myself that we've been doing this for 9 years, so I know it all. It's a different market, it's a different consumer. So I was really focused on learning, but knowing that I was going to stay true to our foundation, but at the same time, making sure that it made sense for the market that I was entering. And so that's sort of how we thought about it. Kate, finally, I would say that it was just so important, as we thought about the positioning. You asked me that for the Nigeria context when we were thinking about it, of what was resonating with consumers. And I feel like it would be important to think about that as I answer this question as well, because I thought we were going to lead with the health stuff like Nigeria, or lead with, the health stuff, but using the superfoods. Oh, a healthy food brand, African fast casual, healthy food brand. We're bringing the magic of Africa's superfoods to US fast casual dining. That was our tagline.
Fonio, all the things that they already know about.
Moringa, fonio, hibiscus, baobab. But very quickly I learned, and this was early days of when we opened, or even just leading up to that, the health thing was already with American consumers now an expectation. It wasn't going to be your mode. It wasn't going to be what was going to differentiate my brand and make us be this standout thing. And yes, fine, African superfoods, but who was going to overly think about that? And at a time when it's all about America first. And, so I had to really be careful and think through, how do I really convey the essence of this? Because I believe in, yes, America first should happen. And because we're entering this country and we have to honor their food systems as well. But how do I still bring forward our originality and who we are as a brand, that this is who we are. We are a Nigerian-born brand, grown, and we're coming here and we want to share this with the world. So I landed on just being able to bring, again, Nigerian, but you see I talk about Africa a lot. So it was about, how do we just change or demystify what it means to be to eat African food, or what it means for African cuisine. So changing the limited, changing those narrow viewpoints and those narrow mindsets and those narrow perceptions of African food and cuisine, and its influences. I wanted to change that with what we were doing. So we just ended up with just African-inspired fast casual. Simple, African-inspired and you spoke to that in the beginning. It's across the region. And by the way, yes, we are healthy, and it's and by the, baobab is mostly in this region, or hibiscus is here, or fonio is grown here. So we are using these amazing products indigenously grown in Africa that are good for you. But by the way, we're also sourcing local fresh produce from the farms in Virginia, in DC, in Maryland, and across the US, to bring you fresh, locally grown stuff. So that's sort of how we merge the two cultures and stayed true to what our brand is, in many ways, and it's resonating very well. I'm excited about that. And I said final before, but I would say the final thing is something you spoke to, Kate, when we were chatting, and you were saying how your passion, your goal, your intention for this podcast that you founded, this amazing podcast that you founded, was to bridge the divide, right, of Black people across the world. And in many ways showing that we are showing our commonalities, right? Because we connect in that way.
Yes.
Celebrating those commonalities, so that we say we're not very different, are we? And we do that through Nuli, right? To be able to tell the stories of and connect the dots, that the same hibiscus drink in our zobo, what we call zobo in Nigeria, is zobolo in Ghana, or it is sorrel in somewhere in Latin America. Oh,
even
it's the same hibiscus, or it's sorrel in Jamaica. That sparks conversation. that sparks connectedness, right? To be able to tell that story I said about naan bread. You have Indians who come to our store. The World Bank is next door, IFC is next door, and they come every day for lunch. You have folks there and they're like, this is so good. I've never had a wrap like this. Or this reminds me of the kati rolls back at home in Bombay, or in that sort of thing. Having those conversations of that are truly ultimately bridging the divide at a time we desperately need to bridge the divides in not just the US, but across the world.
Yeah.
So to me, that is at the core of it. We're only 4 months old in the US, and there's a lot we have planned for this year to double down on that aspect of our storytelling and what we are in many ways through events and through the things that we do. But it's so important to us, and I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's just interesting how, again, you're doing what I keep going back to this because I think this is the crux of our story, is like you're doing what US multinationals have been doing in Africa and Asia, which is they go into that market and they figure out how to tailor their positioning to fit the market. And you have to do the same thing, right? You come into the US, how do I tailor my message in a market where healthy food is the mainstay? How do I differentiate myself? So I have to kind of adjust my positioning from what I adjusted in Nigeria. And that leads into my next question. Who are your competitors in the US? Who do you consider your main, like your top, let's name one that you think this is the brand that is my main competitor in the US market?
So we always, our points of reference are, we say what Chipotle is to Mexican inspired food, what Kava is to Mediterranean inspired food, Nuli is for African inspired food. So those points of references are really our main competitors, you would say. They have thousands of stores today, and we're going to get there in the next decade or more. We're going to get there, and I have no doubt that we have something special, and we will be a brand that is built to last. And so it's brands like that. It is brands like Sweet Greens. It is Panda Express. It is how it's just your convenient, very simple, right? So the same stuff that goes into our wraps is what we use in our bowls, right? We are very intentional about keeping it very, managing our inventory and the number of goods and choices, but we play around with specials, we play around with customization, but just keeping it very simple. So I've over the years, I've had to be very disciplined when somebody says, you should add this to the menu, or you should add that. That's what everybody, I'm just like, nah. The fact that we did it as a fast casual in Nigeria when we started, it was so intentional. I was like, I'm not going to, the things that I hated in restaurants, I hated calling a server back to say this fork is dirty. Or can you please change it, or you didn't get my order right, or whatever, or waiting for my order for long. I was like, I'm going to take that. I'm not going to have forks. No, just grab and go. Wait for your order. Take this buzzer. When it's ready, you get up. Nigerians are not used to that. They're like, come and serve me. I have to get up to get my food. And we're like, we changed it. We were like, we're a healthy brand. Do some exercise. And then
I like that. I like that. I like that reframing. So you mentioned that so in the US, you're locally sourcing your produce from the US market. So obviously you're not importing. Are you importing anything from?
No, we're importing things like fonio or moringa, and so the things that are local to us. Very soon, hopefully, when we get our own standalone store, we'll be doing our espresso coffee, and we'll bring our coffee beans from Nigeria, from parts that people have maybe Ethiopian coffee now, but they don't know that Nigeria does coffee. Like all our stores here, we sell our Nigerian coffee, Arabica coffee. It's tasty. So we do things like that. Moringa, baobab, the suya spice in our suya chicken, right? The yaji, we bring it we're sourcing that from Africa. But otherwise, tomatoes, lettuce, beets.
Right, get it from the US.
That's fresh. Yes.
No, but even that, I'm going to use the word radical again. I'm going to use it many times because I think that's even a radical idea, right? That now Africa becomes the exporter.
That's true.
Yes, you have a U.S.
Absolutely.
location, and you're exporting, phone other things from Africa to the U.S. And again,
Absolutely. The
that's
plan is
versus
to have very soon, because people love our rice, our jollof rice. It's the best seller, those bowls, or the fonio. We're going to have, you can buy a sachet and go home and make it, right?
yeah, yeah,
You can buy a sachet of easy cooked jollof rice, newly branded, and you go home, boil your water, put it in, and it's ready in 10 minutes.
hmm
So that's what I'm a big believer, Kate, in using our restaurants as a platform. To be honest, it's not, restaurants are not always the for venture capital, for example, VC, we're not the sexiest things, at least in Africa. Everybody wants fintech and stuff like that. And then on the flip side, on the other side, the other end of the spectrum is philanthropy, right? Yes, Newly nice. She's sourcing from farmers and stuff. But by the time they see I wish I had my bags here, our branding or our juices, we're now overly going to, you're just looking really nice and good. So they don't know where to fit in terms of keeping that narrative of Africa. We need to help the poor people. We need to help. And I've always been against that, right? We should elevate African brand excellence in many ways, right? If we don't have successful brands like Nuli, poverty would still be there. If we're not pooling other small and medium enterprises with us, if we're not pulling the farmers with us, we can't change livelihoods.
yeah,
So for me, we had to find people who believed in that. We had and so it's sort of how I think about the US and have conversations. You have women entrepreneurs, food entrepreneurs, who are maybe doing really interesting snacks, nicely branded, sourcing for locally in Africa, and they want to get into Walmart or Target or listing on Amazon, and they want to have these global opportunities for trade. And folks are there having conversations, which are good, and I think they're very valid, with these big hyper supermarkets and stuff, to try and stock them. But I'm like, guys, let's think differently. Instead, why can't we focus also on making sure the likes of Nuli and other restaurant brands from Africa, or Black owned brands, are being those platforms to help amplify and bring to market all those other brands that do CPG, the packed foods and things.
yeah, yeah.
Don't waste your time first with the Walmart or Target that they wouldn't pay you for 60 days. You have to take care of your shipping. Get it to Nuli immediately. You're right there. Your chin chin, your plantain chips. People are buying their food. They're picking up the snack, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is great!" And then use that, validate your product, and then go to Whole Foods and say, "Look, we have these customer numbers, and we've been selling from." I'm just really, I want to be practical. And so even we did that in Nigeria. We had a whole section of snacks. We called them Newly Nibbles. And we didn't make any of those snacks, we say, so, made by Nigerian entrepreneurs, right? So for many young SMEs who were still making their snacks out of their homes and their own kitchens, we provided them the first route to market. And I'm so passionate about that. And then after that, then they started scaling. So we need to think differently about the routes to market when we think about trade, the other way around. And I see Nuli as having a big responsibility to
Yeah.
be one of those brands that's going to help pull others. And so that it's not only a Nuli that we're, Kate, you're talking to about doing this radical thing and being audacious to come the other way, but it's just going to be many more stories coming out of it.
Of expansion, yes, of African brands expanding into the US through Nuli. No, that's
Yes.
really interesting, because that actually leads into my next question, because I was going to ask about that, right? Someone could there could be a founder in Africa, whether that's like a food brand or any other sector, really, who may look at you and go, oh, of course she was able to expand to the US. She came from a privileged background, if you will, professionally, right? You worked in Tunisia, you've worked, with the government, you went to school in the US, so you have a large network. What would you advise another food brand in Africa that wants to expand to the US, or any brand for that matter that wants to expand to the US? about coming here? What is the main challenge they should expect? And what is the main kind of thing that they think will not be easy that will be easy that they should expect? If that makes sense.
Yes. No, I think it's a great question. I started alluding to it earlier on when I said, look, be prepared, do your work. Don't take it for granted, right? Don't think that, oh, is it not just to get somebody my friend who already has a house there and she has space, I can come and open my restaurant and just start doing it? No, do your research. Who's your consumer? What's your positioning? Who's your competition? A lot of the questions, Kate, that you asked me, it should be well thought through. What are the numbers? How much are you going to pay? How are you going to enter? We did research on, do I do a food truck? Do I go into a food hall? Do I set up my first store in a place and pay rent? What do I do? And we made a decision and we have a plan of how we roll out. So think about your end game and work backwards. We know where we want to be and what needs to be done to get there, right? So do your research and be prepared, very prepared. I'll use an example of maybe some of the surprises. And it's not like Nigeria where you can, like what do we face? Things are organized, right? Here we take it for granted, the fact that you can just call a carpenter now. Like now I just saw a bulb in my house was down and I'm like, let me call Mr. Friday to come quickly replace that bulb. And he comes out, Ma, I'm coming, I'm on my way. And I pay him equivalent of $5 maybe to get it done. And then I get to the US and it takes me, I think it took me about a month to get the plumber to come out. And we needed to get our food license. If we didn't get the food license or the safety license, we wouldn't get the business license. It just delayed us. I was like, I need to open. I need to start making money. I can't. And we're just there.
Yeah.
You get one company, they finally come out, the call out, you have to pay how many dollars? There was one who came to do a sink, and the cost we paid for the work for the sink, maybe it took 30 minutes. It was more than the price of the sink itself.
Yeah, that's the thing with the US. Repairing an item costs you more than just going to go buy a new version of that item.
So those were things that were surprising, somewhat frustrating. But it's just the way the cookie crumbles in that market. So it's something that folks need to be prepared for. You can't cut corners in the way you maybe want to. In Nigeria, you really have to do things by the book.
Yeah.
And that makes you a better brand. If you're a brand who's building for scale, that's exactly what you want. I would say those are some of the things I would just put out there right now. And I didn't think I would have to be spending the time I was spending with my team, with the inaugural team when we were opening, teaching. Like they didn't give a visa to the person who was meant to come train my team, one of our managers. And so what was not on my to-do, I should have been speaking to partners, potential investors, working on strategy, making sure we're listed on Uber Eats, working on our branding, doing all the things that a founder should be doing, and not thinking about this menu that I did and I created 10 years ago. I had to start teaching people from scratch. Like literally, Kate, every day I was waking up at 6 a.m., getting there and leaving at 10 p.m.
Wow.
Showing them, and folks who've never eaten jollof rice or fried rice, or they don't know what a nanini is. Do you understand? You're literally doing a whole recipe. You're weighing it because thank goodness I was smart enough to say I would do my recipe cards at the same time. Because I'm not going to be the one cooking. Nuli, I'm not a people would say America is an interesting one. Folks would say, so you're a chef. And I'm like, I'm not a chef. But you did all of this. This is your entire menu. This is you. You created it. You made it. This is your recipe. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a chef.
You just
realize
that
you're weighing how many grams of salt, how many grams of pepper, the process, you're writing it down, you're teaching, they're tasting it, they're knowing what it tastes like, what it shouldn't taste like. Jollof rice had to be authentic.
Yes.
I didn't want people to run away from African food. I wanted to change the perceptions of our food is always too spicy. They can't eat it. I was like, how do I celebrate the complexity of our flavors with our spices, our ginger, white pepper, curry, thyme? How do I showcase that and not have it overpowered by pepper and it's too hot, it's too spicy? But at the same time, pepper is part of what makes us what we are. So when I was doing jollof rice, our recipe, and I'm making it every day and taking it back to my hotel where my mom was, and mommy, can you taste this? How is it? Giving my 2-year-old daughter to eat because she loves her food, but also giving, a white, a Caucasian American guy who's never been to Africa, giving him to taste and see if the spice level was right. And we ended up on I think a really fabulous recipe. But I put in the work. You have to be ready to put in the work. Many people want to be madame, and this is me, and I'm sure you'd share my background in your podcast of just the other things I do. It's not just Nuli and the boards I sit on globally and stuff. So I could have said, I'm the madame. I can't be doing this. Why am I coming to be teaching people and running to turn something in the pot? And no, as an entrepreneur, you have to be ready to get into the weeds.
Yeah, to the weeds.
Not enough people are ready for that. Not enough people understand that you still have to put in the work if you want to build something that lasts. I even see it with people I hire. Sometimes managers don't want to do, they want to just point and give instructions. I'm the manager. I'm like, I land in DC 3 a.m. United or whatever. I get to my hotel. I sleep. I wake up at 7, jet lag, and I'm at the store. The last time I was there, it was just Thanksgiving weekend. There was a big event there. I was on my feet for 7 hours, flipping chicken, flipping meatballs on the grill. I get the work done, what needs to be done. And that's the mentality folks have to have, whether or not they're coming into the US market, but more so when they're coming into the US market as an entrepreneur and you're trying to build. Right? You have to be ready to get the work done. And so for me, those are maybe some of the top things I would put out there.
No, those are great. So public service announcement, if you're going to expand to the US, prepare to not be playing madame every day, because you're going to have to go in and get in the weeds. And that's really the American style of leadership too. That kind of idea of like being in the weeds and being in touch, equity and all of that. So I think that's a really great point. So before we go, I got one last question for you. And this is kind of like a final thing. What is the goal that you have for Nuli in the US that scares even you? Like that when you say it out loud, you're like, I can't believe this is my goal.
Oh my gosh, we want to have 1,000 stores in the next 10 to 15 years.
Worldwide or in the US?
In the US alone, the market can take it. So it scares me. Yes, why not? Chipotle has how many? Over 3,000, However we get there, franchising, if it makes sense for the business, acquiring other brands and consuming them into Nuli, however. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it scares me. I know a friend who is a dear friend that the person laughed in my face. And that's even made me more determined that it's going to happen. And we'll look back at this podcast, Kate, and know that Ada said it.
Mark this day, 1,000 stores in the US for Nuli. I'm hoping Houston is the next market because I'm waiting for you to come to Houston. And it is a tough market as well.
We get a lot of requests. We've gotten Houston. We have, Dallas. We've gotten LA, Chicago, where you're from. Chicago actually may be the next. But we'll see. But yeah, very excited. Very excited about the potential and the brand. We've been spending the last few months just really, obviously, as we should be doing, stabilizing, understanding what the model looks like, operations, team, and so we're not rushing, and I'm thankful to have partners and support of folks who understand the patience that's needed, but really excited to just move full steam ahead very soon.
That's awesome. Again, thank you. I'm really, really inspired by your story and how you've gotten here. And I wish you lots of luck. Like I said, when you're in Houston, I'll be the first person, or in Chicago. When I go back home to Chicago, I'll be the first person in line on your opening.
The first. Oh, thank you, Kate. I truly appreciate this opportunity to share. What wonderful, special questions you asked. Thank you. And as I said at the start, with what you're doing, it's just amazing. It's wonderful. And being able to share these stories helps me remember. The things I said today, the questions you asked they help me remember where we're coming from, because that's truly what fuels where we're going, right? And inspires that. So thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. And have a good rest of the week, and we'll be in touch.